So this happened over the weekend. And I think this is a great opportunity to remind people why you shouldn't have this kind of behavior when you are visiting Japan during cherry blossom season, or any season. And I know what you're gonna say.
MATOKA, I already know this stuff. I follow all these other Japanese content creators or content creators that live in Japan and they tell me the exact same thing all the time. I don't need to hear that crap anymore.
And this isn't gonna be me just flicking you on the forehead and being like, okay, you did bad, here we go again. I want to break it down a little more and give a little more context as to the importance of cherry blossom season, and why this behavior is unacceptable in Japan from a cultural aspect, rather than just telling you to not do it. But first, let's talk a little bit about the incident just to catch you all up. So over the weekend, there was a tweet from Shibuya Kaho saying,
I saw a video of content creators I've met before doing pull-ups and gymnastic tricks on the sakura tree's branches, inevitably shaking cherry blossoms petals off. It just broke my heart to see someone I actually know doing such things in Japan. It's always been unknown people on social media.
And to be fair, this has been a common incident, especially with the rise of more tourism in Japan. You'll see videos of people shaking the cherry blossom trees in order to get that perfect video or that perfect image of the cherry blossom petals falling down on them. Now, the response to this tweet was actually very surprising because there were people who definitely were on Shibuya's side, and there were definitely people saying like, give these people a break, it doesn't really matter. I for one don't use Twitter or X or whatever all y'all are calling it now very often because I know it's just honestly a cesspool of people's opinions, whether right or wrong, whether I agree with them or not. They're all just gonna come at you like little gremlins.
Emotional damage!
But it was definitely surprising to see that people just didn't really understand the issue, and I think it's because they don't understand the cultural context. For example, people saying,
Actually, children climbing trees is good for the trees. Hanging from a branch makes the branch stronger. Shaking the blossom petals off, it helps it plants its seeds. You just have an emotional response, which is clouding your judgment.
Or,
they are trees. Relax, lol.
And while it still is definitely not right, but also not as surprising if it is a tourist or a foreigner or someone who just doesn't understand the concept, I think the cherry on top was that some of them were Japanese influencers. So not necessarily foreigners, but people who have pretty close ties with Japan. That's where I want to clear the air and say from a cultural aspect that it is very important to respect these customs. Like, I don't think anyone, wherever you are, wherever you live, wants to wake up, look out their window, and see a bunch of people climbing that tree that's on their front lawn. So that's definitely one thing. But culture and how Japanese people view cherry blossom trees and cherry blossom season also plays a definitive part. But let's quickly break down the cultural significance of sakura and cherry blossom and make sure that we're all on the same page first. So cherry blossoms are deeply symbolic in Japan, and they're definitely short-lived. The lifespan of cherry blossoms is between 2 to 4 weeks, so you're lucky to catch them when you're able to. Culturally, cherry blossoms are the symbol of impermanence, or mono no oware, and they represent the bittersweet fleetingness of life. They also have ties to Japanese history and spirituality, being linked to samurai culture and the warriors having embraced this idea of dying young and beautifully, just like the sakura. And it shows up in Buddhist philosophy, representing non-attachment and the beauty of letting go. Now, I think the biggest thing is that, especially for Japanese people, it's not just a tourist attraction or a time of year, it's a sacred natural ritual. One of the main things Japanese do to celebrate this season is having hanami, or cherry blossom viewing parties. And it's a way for families, friends, and co-workers to connect with each other at a little more of a deeper level and admire this fleeting beauty together. So when people shake these trees, it's almost like fast-forwarding through a sacred moment. And the act is considered rude and selfish because it's ruining the view for other people. AKA, it's like going to your friend's birthday party and instead of just, you know, enjoying the moment, celebrating them, you're popping all the balloons, you're throwing the confetti everywhere, you smash the cake on anyone's face. When in reality, it's not about you, fam. Like, sorry. And another thing that is definitely worrisome is damage to the tree. Some of these trees are decades or even centuries old, and so preserving these trees is very important for Japanese culture. And that's also why in many places you get a fine if you end up shaking or damaging any of the cherry blossom trees. So for people who did want more context into it and wanted to understand at a bit more of a deeper level, there you go. And I'm sure there's people who don't get it or don't want to get it, and that's your own prerogative. But we have that information out there so we can move on. I think going forward, people want to know, well, what happened to these content creators that made that video? It's definitely been taken down, and an apology has been made, which is definitely a start. I think the biggest issue is because this content is for a global audience, and especially for a lot of foreigners, it is definitely kind of saying, hey, this is okay, when it's definitely not. And I honestly am a bit torn because as a content creator as well, definitely not on the same level that they are on, but you know, I still make content, I still think about content, all that kind of stuff. When there is a bit going on, you want to continue going with the bit, you know, you kind of want to level it up. And also as content creators, you know, especially because there's so much content out there, it really is just leveling up after each video, after each idea, because it's like, it's never enough. And there's definitely been numerous times where I have seen, you know, the bit just keeps on going and you're almost kind of like competing with, you know, your fellow peers as to who can keep the bit going on longer, how can you make it more interesting, how can you make it funnier and more entertaining, how can you continue to raise the bar, which obviously raises views, raises engagement, and makes you more popular, right? You kind of become obsessed with that life cycle, and I think it also kind of clouds judgment as to what is not even good content, but appropriate content. And I think that's definitely what happened in this occasion. Does that make it excusable? Definitely not. Because while I see how this idea, I guess, came to light and became possible and ended up being posted and stuff, it definitely is also something that could have been avoided if more thinking, if more cultural intelligence was put into it. And I think the last thing that I'm going to say that is kind of all encompassing with not just this incident, but all incidents where something culturally seemingly insensitive happens and the foreign party is blamed. Like, I've been on Japanese Twitter, Japanese TikTok and stuff too, and there are also many videos of Japanese people also doing insensitive things as well. For example, Japanese high school girls laying down on the train and blocking the entrance exit, old men shouting at women on the train for being a little too comfortable or something like that. And I'm sure in certain aspects, this happens, not just with foreigners, but with Japanese people as well. And then I think foreigners get a little sensitive to that as well, because the ones who are very much trying to assimilate are like, hey, Japanese people do the same thing, but why aren't they blamed? Why am I blamed as a foreigner? And I think there's no good way to put this that is going to make both parties or all the parties or just everyone in the world happy, because this is very much just like a life cycle. Japanese people want to blame foreigners because they are easier to blame, and honestly, when you are seeing those kind of things happen, especially on video, it is gonna be more of a foreigner than a Japanese person. And for the foreigners who live in Japan that are affected by that and don't want that to be the stereotype for foreigners because they're trying to assimilate, they feel like they're on the cutting block even though it is tourists. And also tourists feel like, you know, well, I don't feel like that's a representation of how I go to other countries and act, but one or two people spoil it for everyone, essentially. And so with saying all that, because it's like, you know, well, what kind of point are you getting to? We need to educate as many people as possible that this is not okay behavior, and the more people that respects culture, just not Japanese culture, but wherever you're traveling to, like, don't treat it like your home, don't go littering, don't do things that you would feel very comfortable doing in your own area of life. But I think when we also cast blame and say like these people are the root cause of everything, that's still such a generalization, and it's very hard to escape that as well. But also kind of knowing that like incidences can be one-off and are not necessarily a representation of a specific group of people, which is also difficult to do, but very truly that's how a lot of incidences are. Is there a way to fix it? No, unless you're able to control every single person, and there's no way to actually do that. And so you have to stick to videos like this where, you know, we are trying to educate people, like, please don't do that out of respect, and please don't do this because culturally it's a little different from what you do. And then you get into that broken record again of, oh, well, I've heard that a million times, MATOKA, I already know. But then someone right next to you still does it. It's like that life cycle just continues. We'll see if that part even makes the video. At the very least, I hope you've learned a little bit, something new maybe. And for taking away something from this video, I hope you don't shake a cherry blossom tree. But honestly, even beyond that, cultural sensitivity. Let's lead in with that, whatever we do, wherever we go, whoever we meet. Cultural sensitivity. I feel like if anything, and you know, especially in this case, you know, taking away learning experiences, let's go with that because I think that is definitely very important. So there's your PSA for the day. When am I gonna make another video? Who freaking knows, but make sure to like the video and subscribe so you know when there's a next video. Pump me up and make sure that I'm making more videos on this channel. God, these are exhausting to film though. I will see you later, peace.